No, we just had our first technical snafu.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, we didn't get the got a question.
That's what I thought. I was waiting for it.
Yeah, me too. But it
Oh well. We have a question. Ask
Tom.
me.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Yeah. Anyway, I'm Tom Tynan. I'm HomeShow Radio on Sports Radio 610 on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday. And here's our live Facebook/YouTube we're doing right now. Charlie Mosier is going to ask me questions. I'm going to answer them. You actually sent the questions in. He'll tell you more about that. My job is to say, listen Saturday from 9 to 11 and Sunday 8 to 11, except I think the next 5 Sundays we're on early or for the rest of the football season from 7 to 9 because the Texans play at noon. But besides that, it's usually 8 to 11 Sundays and 9 to 12 on Saturdays on Sports Radio 610 in Houston, Texas.
Just a moment, and Tom has given you so much information right out of the box. So I hope you're taking notes. Down. Yeah, we're going to have a quiz at the end of the show today, so you should write that down.
It's multiple choice. It's okay.
That's it. We're going to do a little test. Yeah, we're going to do a little departure here today in keeping with coming back from our turkey tryptophan buzz here over the weekend. We're not going to have a guest today. It's just us. And because we have gotten, Tom, so many questions that have come, we've accrued so many in the past 2 weeks that I just don't want people waiting a long time to get their answers. And so we're going to be answering a whole bunch of them today. And that's the whole show. So if you're looking for
the whole show,
the whole thing, if you're looking for questions about plumbing or electrical and painting and pocket doors and all that kind of stuff and whatever else, we've got it. And if you want to go ahead and send us a question, you can go ahead and fill out the space down below, the comment section, and that'll put it up here, and we'll be able to do it. And if you just want to say hi, that'd be fine too. We'd love to hear from you. So that's the program. And no fancy graphics this week. We're doing this old school like we used to back in the day when we first started this. I just got the questions here. I'll read them to you. And Tom has not heard any of these yet.
No, I have no clue, actually.
Yeah, right. Normally...
I don't know.
Normally, I send him the questions before the show, but we've been a little busy this week, and somehow that didn't make the cut. So here we go.
That's fine. It's like my regular show. I like it that way.
That's right. Coming at you. All right. So here we go. First question, Tom, comes from Krista in Woodlawn, Tennessee. She wants to know, why does my water pressure fluctuate when I turn on more than one faucet? If someone's taking a shower and you flush the toilet, the temperature of the water does not change, but the pressure of the shower changes. Same if I'm running water in the kitchen faucet and the toilet is flushed, or another faucet in the house is turned on. Tom, what do you think's causing this?
Could be a couple different things, but if the house is older and it has like old galvanized pipes, the interior of the pipes are starting to change in size, which means the volume and the pressure is changing. So when you bought this house new in 1973 and everything worked great, and all of a sudden you're starting to get this different fluctuation, it could be because the pipes are so corroded on the inside that the sizing does not meet up with the demand anymore, and you will have that happen in older homes. Now, if it's a newer home and say within the last 15, 20 years, and it's always been good, and it's never been right, I should say. Let me step back. Never been right. It's because the plumbers didn't do the sizing of the pipe properly and follow the fixture unit chart, which means you start big, and as you go down through the line from, say, one bathroom to the next bathroom to the next bathroom, just using those as an example, the pipes actually get smaller as they go down, so the pressure is equalized depending on how many fixture units you have, which could be a lavatory, a commode, shower, so on and so forth. And if that's a design issue that the plumber didn't do right. So if it's a newer home and it's always been that way, it's because the pipes weren't put in properly. If it's an older home and it's just starting up or has been starting up for the last few years, it's probably because the pipes are being corroded on the inside and their inside diameters are changing.
Yeah, and I think that's the case. I think it's an older home is what she's describing here.
Usually that'll happen because people won't wait 10 years to complain about it. They're usually complaining about it about the first month and a half after they move into the house and say, hey, something's not right here. So usually I won't get too many questions on newer homes. It's usually older ones.
In this case, it should, this, if, I mean, if she wasn't in Tennessee, I'd say call TDT and they can come over and fix that.
Call a good plumber. I know people hate to call him. You got to pay him and everything, but that's part of the game. Call a good plumber and have them dissect the problem, because most of the times it can be fixed.
All right. Pablo says, thanks for all your work, Tom.
Oh, you're welcome. Absolutely.
So, Pablo, thank you for being out there with us too today. Frank and Katie has our next question, Tom, and it's a long one, so be patient with me here.
Okay.
I'll just tell you, my reading
I'll go
skills
put the
are about to
coffee
be
on.
tested. All right, here we go. All right, he
Yes.
says he's got a Katie home. You talk about older homes. This was built in 1979, Tom. It has a dining room sheetrock issue with the inside textured and painted paper surface bubbling and wrinkling. It's cracking as well. He says that they're 2x4 walls. They're 10 feet high. Okay, now I'm going to give you some geography here in the house here. The north wall is about 4 feet of sheetrock with the rest of the wall a ceiling to floor glass. So it's like the wall comes and then it's all glass. And then the east wall is all glass. And then he's got a south wall that's an interior wall. He doesn't have a problem on that one. And then the west wall, the exterior wall, the one he's having the problem with, is where he's having the issue. And so they replaced the AC because they suspected, he says, that the old unit wasn't giving him enough humidity. Now they got one that's down under 50%, where you say it ought to be. He says, we're replacing the west wall sheetrock and rock wool insulation with fiberglass. He says, the outside sheathing is tar impregnated fiberboard. Now, since I have the studs exposed, can I put 1/2-inch foam board against the sheathing or the 1/4-inch attic liner cut to the size between the studs before I install the insulation, or should I just stretch Tyvek between the studs? What would be your advice, Tom?
Well, the first problem I think he's having, because it's an exterior wall, it's a west wall, and he's having the problems on that sheetrock, is there's leaks in the wall. The wall's taking water, and so it's moisture that's wanting to come out. And if you have an air conditioning system on and you have moisture in the wall, it's going to want to draw that moisture into the interior of the home to where it's drawing it and pulling it through the sheetrock. So I would really investigate all your flashing, all your weatherproofing details, your waterproofing details on that wall from the outside, because once it gets in the wall, it's pretty hard to stop. I would not put foam up against there, but if you think that's the only option, doing one wall as opposed to everything else, it probably isn't going to hurt you much. I don't know what help it's going to be. I have a feeling you have a leak somewhere, and it's you've got to go to the problem. You can't just start layering materials on the inside to stop it somewhere, because it's going to want to fester somewhere if it can't move. And so I would really take a good look at that. And as far as that goes, you should be able just to put your insulation back and go ahead and put your sheetrock back, texture, wallpaper, whatever you're going to do. But find out why it's getting wet in there, because I don't think it's interior humidity by any means. In fact, interior humidity probably wouldn't have affected the wall the way it is, because it's trying to get out, not come through the back, and this is coming through the backside.
So that's coming through and it's hitting the surface
It's
of
pushing.
it, and that's
Yeah,
stopping.
it's just like pushing, you know. It wants to come through.
All right, so look for a leak in it, and the rock wool insulation wasn't an issue or anything like that, right?
I wouldn't blame the rock wool. No, it does deteriorate over time, and it becomes real dusty and everything. And so it has it's an organic material, but because of it, it's like cardboard, like the cellulose materials. They start to deteriorate over time because they are biodegradable, and it becomes real dusty and messy. But it's not a moisture issue. No.
I used to work with a guy named Dusty. He degraded over time too.
Okay.
Yes. David in Sienna Plantation has our next question, Tom. He writes to us, my garage has a ridge vent and also recently installed soffit venting. I'd like to do a few more things to curb summer heat in the garage, and one of which is to install insulation on the bottom side of the garage roof plywood decking. Something thin that can be affixed easily. Is there a product you'd recommend for this, Tom?
No, because I wouldn't recommend doing it. It's not going to do you any good. If you're trying to keep your garage cool, you have to air condition it. It's just no other way around it. You can insulate, and all it's going to do is hold the heat in after the sun goes down and it gets all hot in there during the day. So there's nothing I would recommend. Is there lots of little insulations and things? Sure. Am I going to encourage you to do that? No, because I would be wasting your time. And my grandfather once told me, it's a sin to waste a man's time. It's the only thing we can't get back. So I'm not going to do that to any of our listeners. And for that fact, I would say if you want to cool it, you can use fans to cool your body while you're in there so you're more comfortable. You can air condition it like I did with mine. So when I'm out there working, I crank that air conditioner on. I wouldn't call it Mr. Energy Efficient. It's not the Green New Deal, but I'm nice and cool when I'm working on my old Mustangs and motorcycles and stuff. So that's just a price I pay, and I don't mind paying it.
I thought you're cool all the time, dude.
I'm cool. Yeah, no.
Gnarly.
Not.
Okay, yeah, no, look at
Not the places I live.
Yeah, let's give our age away here. All right, here's one who comes all the way from Westminster, Colorado. That's where we find Robert. He says, the combustion air return ducts for my furnace lead to the crawl space under the house instead of through an exterior wall. That said, can I still close the crawl space vents in the winter?
No, but it has nothing to do with that air intake. It's almost like the same answer I just gave. I don't want you to do that because you're causing harm and you're wasting your time. And I don't want you to waste your time. It has to breathe whether it's cold out or whether it's hot out. You're not heating your home by skirting around the bottom of your house. If you need heat, turn heat on. You can certainly insulate underneath the floor if it becomes a real problem and you live in an area that's very cold. But as far as that goes, it's got to ventilate. So you've got to keep it ventilated to get the moisture out of there, or you're going to have a cold, wet mess. And I don't want anybody to do that. And as far as that air intake vent, that's fine to put it under a house. And even if you closed it up, you'd still get enough leakage where it would be fine. It's just something I don't want you to do on the skirt. I don't care about the intake.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's got to breathe, and you don't.
Yeah, don't do it.
Choke it. Right.
I mean,
yeah, don't do that.
That's
thing.
2 in a row. Don't do it. Don't do it. Now I can step back with a question we had before. Is there an insulation that could help cool that garage a little bit? You could install a radiant barrier. That's not an insulation that gentleman was thinking about. So I have to give a little time for it to all sink in. But a radiant barrier would help the man with the garage. Don't do it around the skirt of your house.
Hey, by the way, if you're sitting there gathered around your tablet, your iPhone, your Android, or your computer, and you're enjoying the show, but you got a question, you can just go ahead and put it in the comment section down below, and it'll come up, and we'll answer it right here too. You don't have to wait for send us a question in writing or anything. We're happy to take you on right here. We'll take you on right here live. All right.
We are live. Yes.
But we are right now, but somebody could be watching this on tape later, so it becomes a metaphysical thing.
You know what impresses my students so much, Charlie? I work for a school system during the week, and they're young. They're younger people than you and I. There's no doubt. They don't know who Eisenhower is.
Right.
But that I am on YouTube. They think that is the coolest thing in the world. So I just thought I'd say that because I don't really think much of it, but I know a lot of people watch it. I've gone to a video or two once in a while, but I'm just Mr. Cool. I'm telling you what, I'm Mr. Cool during the week.
I'm glad we could help.
That's aging us, isn't it? Yes. TV, they don't care if you're on TV. You got to be on YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Bill in Minneapolis Bill's out there. He says to us, you addressed a tile shower floor that doesn't drain recently on the show, Tom. He caught you. He says, what about a plastic one that doesn't drain? Part of mine is pitched away from the drain and it pools. Is there some kind of self-leveling compound or to at least make that part flat? Like maybe something magical from another world that fell to Earth that could fix this plastic problem?
Well, I mean, you could put a bunch of concrete or something in there and just have one ugly mess and slope it the right way. But no, I don't want you to do that. As far as what you call plastic, you're talking about the fiberglass pans they put in showers and they tile the walls. Not a big fan of them. I would never put one in my house. I would never put one, and I never did, in somebody else's house I built for them. That's why it's nice to be able to form the tile floor before you put the tile down and prep it right with the proper pans and everything else. So that's a quick way for them to get a shower in. And in the long run, it starts to have problems. If it's always done that, you have to pull it out and reset the whole thing, buy a new one, and put it in properly. It just wasn't put in properly. If it was properly put in at the beginning, and now it's starting to show signs of so-called sagging, I guess you might say, where it's getting lower in places that it's not supposed to, it's because it wasn't supported underneath. And if you don't support it underneath, eventually fiberglass, it starts to fracture a little at a time when you're walking on it. And we're not a thin society today. So I would say 200 to 300 pound man, somewhere in that 100-pound range, can do a lot of damage to those pans. And over time, every time it fractures a little bit, it gets worse and worse and worse. It doesn't heal itself. And so it gets to be real bouncy in some cases, or real low in areas where it wasn't like that before.
Yeah, I don't imagine you could heal something like that, and that thing's not going to come out gracefully enough to where you can put it back in either.
No, it would be a mess. By the time you throw it away, it's easier to buy a new one than try to fix that one. Don't even bother.
All right, Fresno, Texas, where we go next. Roosevelt has our next question. He says, I'm a regular listener, and I heard an answer opposite of what you gave me for the same problem. Now, Roosevelt, I'm going to let you know something. That happens more than we care to admit around here, because there's so many ways to answer a question. I mean, I said this to Tom one time. I said, I heard you say this one time and this another time. Well, there's some nuances. Is that right, Tom, to how a question is answered differently from one to another, right?
It's either that or it's opposite day, like George Costanza had one time on Seinfeld.
Okay.
But no, there is. If I'll hear one word or two words, or I'll try to extrapolate the person and their exact situation, like what would be great for one person is not necessarily great for the other because of the circumstances. Maybe you don't have you're going to call somebody as opposed to trying to do it yourself, or you want a quick fix instead of a long-term fix. So I try to really, that's why I like the idea that people call in on the radio show.
Right.
Because I can banter and ask questions and find out exactly where we're going with this.
Oh, to be clear, this augments the radio show. There's no substitute for actually being with Tom on the radio on Saturday and Sunday. So believe me, I do it on Sunday, and there's nothing else quite like it. So anyway, so here's
Nice.
here's what.
It's true.
Okay, so Roosevelt, here's his question. He says,
Yes.
I have a crawl space mobile home addition that's open on all sides, but my floor is rotting. I have vinyl flooring on top of the subfloor with no insulation. You, he says, advised him to put insulation up to the subfloor and reinstall the vinyl floor. Then, he says, I heard you tell another caller not to insulate under the subfloor who had condensation on the insulation rotting his subfloor. The problem seems to be the vinyl flooring, Roosevelt says. I had problems with tile too, so what kind of floor should I put in there, Tom? And is there a reason why two people got two different answers?
I'd have to listen to the questions. One might have had drainage going under his home. Another person might not have.
Okay.
One person might have been living in a different part of the country than the others. We get a lot of different ones. So I'm not sure. But in this case, as far as what kind of floor, I'm not going to blame the vinyl floor by any means. I want to know why there's so much water under there. Is it because it's not ventilated? Do some people insist on insulating? And in the new energy codes today, you have to insulate. So I'm not sure about the differences in that. But as far as that goes, we have to find out why it's so wet under there. And the vinyl floor is not the answer. It's not the problem. It's because it's wet under the house. So my question would be, is there a drainage problem? Is there water that's seeping under the house? Is it lower under the house than it needs to be? And do we need to blow sand under there? Do some people have the issue where it's just getting cold because of the air conditioning? So it's starting to create a dew point. Then you would want to insulate like a koozie on a beer can. But if there's moisture under the house that's rotting the floor because it can't escape, that would be a reason not to insulate, but to ventilate. So there's some different issues, and I'd have to find out exactly why his water problem was there. But I would not blame the vinyl. I don't think a vinyl floor is real good on a wood subfloor like that. I think you have tile and some of the new slap-down vinyls, which I think are fine, and some of the newer floors that'll handle it fine. But we got to find out why there's water under the house.
Typically, I've heard you recommend against insulating under the floor. Typically. I mean,
I wouldn't do it
in most cases.
In a hot climate. In Houston, Because there's no heat gain under there. You're not going to save on the energy bills. I used to get kind of upset with the energy code requiring us to do it. So we had to make sure our ventilation systems were right on with our crawl space homes and make sure that underneath the house was higher than anywhere around it. We couldn't have any water under that house. It had to stay bone dry. So you had to be really careful. But they do require insulation, which is an R19 under a home today to meet the energy code so you can get your permits and you can get through your inspections. But if I had an older home that was not insulated, I would not insulate an old home that was 40, 50, or 60 years old or even older. Because of the reason it lasts so long, it wasn't insulated and it stayed dry, and it was probably opened up and had the breeze blowing under there and no water standing, and that's really important.
Well, I think about what you say also about insulation. Is designed to stop the heat coming in, and there's not a lot of heat coming up from underneath the house. So
no, there's none. So as far as energy
under
goes,
normal circumstances,
yeah, you got maybe get a little bit, but nothing that's going to cause your energy bill to go through the roof. What happens is people get really uncomfortable when it's cold out. I don't know, how y'all are feeling about this cold weather coming and going a little bit right now in the Houston area, but I see people freezing to death where some people up north would consider it a bright sunny day. So it depends who you are and where you're from. But in the winter time, even in Houston, when it gets uncomfortable because of the cold, that's when the insulation would pay off. But you're not going to put it on and take it off just for those few days. So I just soon see you not to do it.
Yeah. In fact, I grew up in New Hampshire, and I got lots of friends. I posted on Monday about, it's 32 degrees. Oh my God. and they're like, oh, it's 50 up here, Charlie. I'm thinking, I'll talk to you in
Listen,
January.
when I lived in Lake Placid, if it was 32 and the sun was out, people would stop their cars, rip their shirts off, and try to get a suntan. It was like a sunny afternoon.
So, believe me,
depends on your mindset.
Yeah. I mean, if it goes under 65, my Texas-born wife is wearing her leggings. You know what I mean? It's cold. All right, here's one from I think it's Baldy is how you pronounce his name. He says, "What insulation you recommend for a fireplace stack in a 2-story house? The bottom's fir brick veneer, and he's replacing the plywood and getting rid of the vinyl coverings that are there." Tom,
I'm not sure I'm following that on the fireplace insulation.
Yeah, what insulation would you recommend for a fireplace stack?
You usually don't insulate them at all. If you do, it would be fiberglass. Insulation products have to have a fire retardant rating. So you don't want it touching the flue. If you're going to use it as a fireplace and it's a metal wall, you have to have about 1.5 inch to 3 inch airspace around it. So nothing needs to touch it. If you're going to insulate the wall, the flues, the stack or the big box is real big, and you only have like a 6 or 8 inch metal pipe going through there, then make sure the insulation doesn't touch it. But fiberglass is exactly what you would use if you want to insulate it. I don't know if I'd insulate it. I don't know why you would. You're not air conditioning or heating it. So the less insulation and the more it stays dry, the better.
Yeah, I think that's a Lee from Lord's Chimney kind of thing.
Oh yeah, if you want a chimney sweep here, and in Houston, there's not a lot of good chimney sweeps to choose from. You go up north, and everybody and his uncle is a chimney sweep because it's so popular and there's so many. But Lord's Chimney down here in Houston, they are true chimney sweeps, and they can handle any problem associated with a fireplace. And Charlie, that's a good point, because right now people are wanting to use them. When I'm in my house in Houston and I'm not in Brownsville, we turn ours on when it's cold. I have gas logs, and I want it to make sure it's safe. So I always get my inspection, in my case, about every 4 or 5 years, because it's a gas log. If it's real logs, I would do it every year if I use it regularly. But you need to make sure it's safe. And if you haven't used it in a long time, which is a real common situation, or you bought a new home, or a home that's new to you, that's an older home, you say, oh, well, the inspector inspected it, it's fine. That's not true. You still need to get your chimney inspected if you're going to use it to have a fire.
Okay, let's go to Shady Acres, where Hunter is. He writes, that's here in Houston. He says he's got some new construction he's working on out in El Campo, and he wants your advice on this, Tom. He says, number one, he wants to know zip system versus plywood and Tyvek. What are the advantages and disadvantages of that? And I'll get to the second question after you answer that one.
Well, the zip sheathing is being used by everybody right now. I'm not a big fan of it. I've been on a few job sites, and it seems like we're making the same mistakes again. It's real thin. It's not taped properly on the jobs. I've noticed that the taped jobs are horrible. It's not being put on properly according to specifications. And when you have a product that is very unforgiving, and if you don't do it exactly right, it's not going to perform. You've got to be careful out on the field, because it's just, you're getting garbage. It's all in, like a computer. It's operator error is what's happening, is what I'm finding out. With plywood, once you put it on, you nail it on, it's on. You don't have to worry about it. And when you wrap it with a full sheet of Tyvek, as long as you wrap it, and it's a lot easier to do that, you don't have to worry so much about the taping and everything. In fact, there's very little of that to do. So I think it produces a better product. Now, the plywood definitely structurally is going to hold up better. That's why it's required for windstorm ratings, and that's really important to me. So if I was out building today, and I do know this product, I've been on jobs just lately around the Houston area. Some friends of mine are having some homes built. I was kind of appalled by the way that product is being used, and being used wrong, and sloppy, and just laziness. It's really bad, and I know the attitude is, we'll just cover it up, so don't worry about it. Right. But I would not use it. It's not a product for me.
I mean, and you and I researched this one a while ago, and it seems like there's such a margin for error with that zip system, and the Tyvek is just simple. It's KISS. It's real simple. You put it on.
Yeah, it's like wrapping a Christmas package. Let's go seasonal. It's just wrap it up. And that other stuff you can poke in and out. It doesn't have the structural integrity that plywood has. And a sheathing package. This is what I don't understand is, every part of your building has a job, and the job of a sheathing on a house is a gusset plate. It holds all those little sticks together. If you don't have that, it's all going to rack and move, and I don't care how many studs you put in a wall, it'll still move if you get a lateral force on it. And this plywood holds it all together where you can't get that, and that's why it's used in hurricane-prone areas or high wind areas, which is everywhere around Houston. So I don't think you have to be on the coast to follow a lot of those rules or a lot of those building practices. I think you should, and I know I did my entire career. I don't care where I was building. We have tornadoes. We have these northern storms coming through. People are losing power now more than they did all summer because of some of the winds and stuff. I know at my house I did. So you've got to be prepared in a moment's notice when it comes to high winds.
Yeah, I'm with you. That things do one thing, and I think when you get into trouble, we see that in a lot of things in life. It's like things got to do one thing. It's like in my photography thing. When I take up my camera, that it comes from the factory, where if you hold the button down just a little, it focuses, and then you push it the rest of the way, it takes the picture. And no. The shutter should only fire the shutter. I use the back button to focus mine. You got one button that focuses, you got one that shoots. And it's like that should be the way everything is. It's this combo stuff that gets us in trouble. Just as a Zen thing,
No, you take me back to, took photography classes in college to kind of fill. It was kind of fun, actually. We had the f-stop we had to set. Right. We had all these different things.
It's the triangle of exposure.
But I remember doing all this stuff trying to get the perfect picture.
The triangle of exposure, right? It's kind of like the triangle of fire, right?
I would develop my own black and white pictures. It was a fun class. I took 2 semesters.
Right. Yeah. Exposure, shutter speed, aperture, ISO. That's your, just in case you're wondering about the triangle. Yes. All right. Yeah. All right. Hunter's other question, by the way. And by the way, we've gotten a couple questions. Feel free to join, pile on. We're going to be here answering questions a little while longer, because we're not having a guest today, in case you're just joining us, because we got so many questions that have piled up in the last couple of weeks, and we're trying to get through them all and help everybody out. So that's our Thanksgiving gift to you. All right. So Hunter's other question, he says, is his architect wants to use foam under pitched sections of the roof rather than conventional roll or blown-in fiberglass insulation in the attic, and the roof will be flat on the second story. Your thoughts on that one?
I'm not a fan of foam. I never have been, never will be. I'm too old for that now, and I just think it's a bad practice, especially in a hot, humid climate. Now, I had a home with foam once. I will tell you that. It was a refurbished 100-year-plus home, but it was in Lake Placid. It was the Cherry Lodge. way up in the mountains where it was snowing on Mother's Day. You get 5 feet of snow. So, and that's in May, by the way, for you guys. Anyway, it's just the wrong climate for this breathability. You want something that'll breathe. You don't want any area where the moisture can get trapped. You don't want anything packed up against your structure if you can avoid it, just so if you have leaks or anything, it doesn't, build on itself and create a real problem. And it's really expensive, and it's not going to save you all the money that you're being told it will, especially with today's energy prices. So I just think it's the wrong way to go, and I would let it breathe. And I can't say that word breathe enough. That's in capital letters if I was sending a text or an email. And I would say the formaldehyde-free fiberglass unfaced to me was my favorite product when I left, and it still is.
All right, fair enough. Edward writes to us from Penland, Pennsylvania. He says, I have a Cape Cod house that's 60 years old. He says it has all the vents on 4 corners of the soffits. Per your suggestion, he says, I'm going to replace my attic fan with a ridge vent, but I'm concerned that my old style soffits might not provide enough airflow. New home soffits are on the full length, so should I go with a he says a smart vent on the roof? What is a smart vent?
It's a solar vent. You know how everybody's trying to push the solar vents, Charlie? Mm-hmm. And so they have different names. So this one has to be really it's smart because it'll turn on and off with the sun.
It's so smart because it generates a great commission.
Yes. It's just a name. It's probably a brand. But as far as that goes, this is a great question. I'll tell you why, because this is how people will think. They'll say, well, I don't have enough soffit, so I'll put another type of power vent or some exhaust vent on the house. A soffit vent is an intake. So you can put 100 smart vents and all the ridge vents in the world. If you can't feed it with something, it's got to find somewhere else to get the air. So this is not a replacement for a soffit vent. Now, do you need more soffits? I don't know, and I can give you a little formula to figure out if you want. But that's not a replacement for soffit vents. It's not something you would do. In fact, it would cause more problems than good, because now it's got to find air somewhere. If you don't have enough soffit to feed it, it's going to suck air through the ridge vents and everywhere else and cause a real positive, negative pressures, which I'm not going to bore everybody with for a long time, but it'll start trying to pull the conditioned air out of the house to replace the air that's being removed from the attic and not being replaced. So it's going to pull from anywhere it can in an opposite way, so it's going to be pulling outside. So you do not want to do that. It is not a replacement, and one does not replace the other. Do you need more soffit vents? Maybe. I don't know. What you need to do is figure this out. It's 1 square foot of opening for every 150 square feet of attic floor. However big your house is and how big your attic floor is, it's figure out how many square feet. You need 1 square foot of opening, and this is minimum. You can have more for your exhaust and your intake. Now you want 40% exhaust and 60% intake, and basically what that says is have all the soffit vents you can and have all the exhaust vents you can. But you usually need more soffit than exhaust. Although if they're equal and you have enough of both, it's fine.
All right. I can never that math on the radio thing. I can never keep up with that.
Yeah, I try to avoid it, to be honest with you.
It's it's kind of,
you know what? Have as many ridge vents and soffit vents as you can.
Okay. There you
and don't lose sleep over it. Okay?
Exactly.
Don't start spending all kinds of money because you think it's wrong. It's fine. Everything's fine.
Exactly right. Yeah, if you're new to the show, Tom has a recipe for how to it's a refinishing furniture thing, and I think we got a question coming up we're going to do in our Ask Tom videos that we're putting up on the website this week about this. So you want to go check that out. But Tom has been giving that recipe out for the last 30 years, and I sit next to him every Sunday. I can't remember the thing, so don't feel bad if you got to ask more than once.
Well, if they didn't ask, then I wouldn't have a job. So ask all you want. I don't care if on Sunday we have every single question's the same question. I'll do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Hey, I got nothing else. I allotted that time for the show. I'm going to do the show.
Mm-hmm.
Are you asking me about that right now?
No.
Oh, okay. Good. I was
I'm
just
just
curious.
saying. I'm just saying.
By
No,
the
no,
way,
no.
I learned that when I was 15 years old,
Yeah.
working in a used furniture store. It was a way for us to clean the furniture up and move it out the front. It was brought it in the back. It's that simple.
Yeah, I was 15 years old. Got my first job in radio and learned how to slip cue a record. Man, that's come in handy over the years.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, well,
So-
I don't do much linseed oil anymore either. So
Exactly.
what are you going to do?
Hey, Trevor, I think he must be in Pennsylvania. He says he's looking for a company that sells round top doors close to Pennsylvania, and I don't think we have one close to Pennsylvania. But I wonder if Door Clearance Center might be able to hook him up somehow, or have an outlet up there that they could recommend.
I mean, you could try it, and you could go to our website, and you could probably email them. Don't they have like an email link that they can just say,
They
hey, you
do.
know have any
They do.
dealers
Hang
up
on.
this way? Because this is a wholesaler that sells doors everywhere. Do they have the door you exactly want? I don't know.
Right.
But usually you got to go local with that kind of stuff. And so that's what I would tell you to do. You'll find a round top door. It's just who's up there. And when and I know Pennsylvania well. My mother's family's from there. I've owned property there. Scranton and Carbondale.
Hold
we
on
were
a second.
coal
Hang on a
miners.
second. He says he's from Pittsburgh.
That's on the west side. So I'm not as familiar with that as I am the east side, but still, there's got to be a dealer somewhere. If you'd like to email Door Clearance Center through our website and see if they have some people they sell doors to, then please feel free. Maybe they know they sell all over the country to dealers and lumber yards and things like that sell doors. Also, if you contact your local lumber yards, I used to do that in Lake Placid when I was refinishing that old home, and you only had 2 places in like 400 miles to choose from. They would know exactly where you could go, whether you had to go to Plattsburgh or where you had to go to Albany. But they would tell you this is the only chance you have unless you import it and drive it up here yourself. So it depends where you are. Pittsburgh's a little bigger than Lake Placid.
Well, and I tell you this about that. We're fixing to do some work at the house. We have Trifection's about to do our bathroom, and Sandy has started looking for the supplies for that project. Trifection, by the way, if you're new, is the remodeling company that Tom recommends.
Very good.
Right. And
Yes.
Sandy listens to the show as a result. We're getting a new bathroom. anyway, so, but she went out and started looking at fixtures and stuff. And some of that stuff is up to 10 weeks and longer now. And of course, everybody's blaming COVID for the delay. But they're saying that that's a big issue right now with projects. It's backing projects up where you can't get supplies right now.
It's been like that for the last 8 months. I got a cabinet delivered to the school I work at, and we were missing a part. I called them, and they said it was from Michigan. They said, "Oh, well, we'll get you a part to you, no problem. No cost. We're very sorry it happened." And they said, "But we don't know when because we had to close our warehouse down." And this is just one little thing that could, there's millions of these. We had to close our warehouse down because of the fact that nobody's allowed to go to work. So there's been a lot of that lately, and that goes with plumbing fixtures and everything else too. I do know that in the industry, they're having a hard time finding materials, just simple things like vinyl baseboards and stuff to finish out projects for their clients, which means these contractors are not getting paid because they can't complete the job with little things like gray vinyl baseboard. We need 2 more rolls of it. Well, we shut our plants down. It's coming out of Florida now. We've stopped production on certain lines because we didn't have people who go to work. This is really common right now that you're hearing these little things that are so important in that chain to make projects happen.
I'll give you another. Here's an oddball example of where that's happened as well. Is that Trevor says, "Thank you for the information." Trevor, thank you for watching.
Good luck.
Appreciate you being here. And go to HomeShowRadio.com, and that's where you'll find all of the people Tom recommends. And like I say, if you call somebody, one of our people, we're here in Houston, they probably can tell you maybe there's a source. And I know that Door Clearance Center's parent company, Doorscapes, sells doors all over the country. So they probably have somebody they can recommend up in that part of the world. But anyway, back to this limitation thing. We're kind of semi in the market to buy an RV. And kind of semi in the market. Probably a couple of years off. But,
It's like a boat, man. Okay, go ahead. I want to hear this.
Except there's a hole in the highway you throw money into. So, but we went and looked at one recently because it popped up, and we went, why not? And so we went and looked at this thing, and it's silver. And we said, yeah, but we want it in the other configuration. He says they will have no more silver ones until 2022 because they can't get the paint. The silver paint is in such limited supply, so they're all going to be white next year. And then they said that the other problem is that the real crunch they're having is that FedEx, UPS, and the USPS have bought up all the Sprinter frames that they build them on, so that it's hard to get the frames to build them up. So it's everywhere. So.
Oh, yeah. And it's not only COVID, though. This happened when the war started back in 2001 after 9/11. You couldn't get plywood because it was all being shipped overseas to the
Hang on. I thought I meant WW2. I thought, well, you're not that old.
No, that happened in WW2 also. But, there's always something that can hurt supply. And the construction industry is notorious for supplies shutting down during certain times, depending what's going on.
Okay. So be patient with your projects. All right. Got one more here, and I think we'll call it a day unless anybody else has some questions coming in. And we appreciate you watching and being here every week. We're here every Thursday at 4 o'clock answering questions, and we're going to usually have a guest. We'll probably have one next week if I can get my act together for that. But Jay and Katie wraps us up today. He says, we need to make room for a modern and larger washer and dryer set. So we want to permanently remove an old laundry room sink. He wants to know, can I simply remove the PVC drain and cap the flush line to the wall, or do I need to keep the P-trap intact for some reason?
No, just cap it. In fact, if you want to cut the sheetrock and cap it inside the wall, then sheetrock over it so nobody knows it was even there, I'm good with that. You can do the same with the water lines too. Just cut them where you want to and cap them. Whether you screw a cap on, glue a cap on, or solder a cap on, I don't care as long as it's watertight and you're doing the same plumbing. You would do that all the time. The reason I wouldn't let them stick out because somebody might break it. If you get them inside the wall where you don't see them and they're not sticking out like little stubs, then you don't have any problem with it. Although if you ever want to use it again, you can always add another P-trap to it. The P-trap is for the fixture. It's not for the line because you're going to plug it tight.
All right. Well, fair enough. Now, if you want to send us a question, hang on a second. Harley Man has a question for us here. He writes into us, Tom, what's the best two-stage AC in your opinion?
I don't think there's a best one. They all make two-stage units now that I know of. I can't imagine any of the manufacturers not making two stages, variable speed furnaces. I mean, it is the wave, and it's what's happening. People are going more and more to the bells and whistles. And so Lennox, Train, American Standard, Rude, they all have they're all fine. And the reason is this. All air conditioning and heating systems must meet energy standards today. And so you can't make a cheap unit that meets those standards. It's impossible. So instead of cap tubes, they're using expansion valves. They're using all the different things that used to be extras that people would add on to the units years ago. If you listen to my show from 30 years ago or 28 years ago, you would have heard me say, well, you have to have expansion valves. You have to add this. You have to add. It's all on there now. So what you want is a contractor you're going to live with through the whole life of the unit who is going to install it, back it up, warranty it, maintain it, check it every year. If there's a problem, fix it without giving you a big line about, oh, I don't know who put this in. This was put in terrible. We're going to have to replace everything. And give you one of those stories. The guy that puts it in will never give you a story like that. So find the contractor. If he's associated with a particular brand, for Carrier, for instance, if they're a Carrier dealer, then use the Carrier unit because he'll have access to parts. He'll be better equipped to take care of warranty issues because he has the ear and the attention of the representative from Carrier. So that's what you want to do. And you want to do that with roofing materials and other materials too today. It's not that a material is better. It's the contractors and the association with the material manufacturers.
Fair enough. And by the way, if you're looking for people you can trust, you can go over to our website at HomeShowRadio.com. Hang on, where is it here? Doggone it! I didn't do a frame store of that today because we weren't going to use it. So you just have to take my word for it. It's at HomeShowRadio.com. Actually, I can do this because if you want to send us a question to be on here or in our daily Ask Tom videos, you can just go ahead and visit HomeShowRadio.com. And for some reason, You know, my graphics are all messed up today, Tom. You know what this is? Before the show,
I'm an avatar. Okay, sorry.
Before the show, I usually spend about 10 minutes punching through and make sure everything's okay. Today I was just like, man, I gang of time. Let's go. It's going to be great. And so this is a reason why when you fly in an airplane, the pilot walks around the airplane before it takes off.
Is that duct tape hanging off of that?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to...
Oh, yes, they better. And they have a
Anyway.
checklist that's longer than people think.
I'm holding my breath at the closing theme is on here now. So we'll find out here in a minute. But if you want to get us questions, visit homeshowradio.com and go ahead and put your questions in on the Ask Tom button. It's right there in the middle of our homepage. Click on that, send it in, and we'll answer them even here or on Early Edition, which Tom and I do Sunday mornings at 8 o'clock on Sports Radio 610 here in Houston, or on our stream at homeshowradio.com. We also put out a new video answer every day to a question that you send us in, and you can find those on our Facebook page, our YouTube channel. We got a bunch of people watching on YouTube today, or you can YouTube, Facebook, and the website. So that's where you can put them. So, and then Tom will tell you all about where to find him this weekend.
I will be on the radio, on Sports Radio 610. And Charlie, people from Pennsylvania and everywhere else can listen, right? They can go to our website and they can podcast it.
It's not a toll call to listen to the show.
There you go.
Yeah,
or they could even go to Sports Radio 610 website, right?
That's
true.
They could, or get the radio.com app and listen to it there.
So for whoever you are, it's Central Standard Time, or is it Daylight Savings?
I don't know. I just say Central, so that way I don't worry
Okay,
about the
it's
rest
Central Time. And, see, I know everything. Central Time, except how to read a watch. 9 to 12 on Saturday, and this Sunday it'll be from 7 until 9, and then we'll turn it over to the Texans, and if you're not a Texans fan, you can go ahead and listen to something else.
You're not alone. All right, so anyway, by the way, before Tom, and let's see, I'm holding my breath, this is going to work. Hey, this one works. The Garden Pros are on every Saturday morning from 7 to 9, and they have their own website at homeshowgardenpros.com. It's 6 of the best locally owned and operated nurseries here in the Houston area, and Danny Milliken hosts that. You can catch that Saturday mornings before Tom from 7 to 9. That's what we do. That's the home show thing. So that's going to do it for this week. Tom, I will look forward to seeing you on the radio Sunday.
Yes, see you Sunday at 7 o'clock when it's still dark out.
All right, now let's see if this plays, okay?
I don't know. Go ahead, try it.
Nope. It says,
okay,
cannot find the file. Well, then, you know what? We're just going to go away. So have a great time. We'll see you guys next week, and hopefully the pilot will walk around the plane before we take off again.